AEW talent are frustrated over the roster size. Plus, there have been more WWE cuts at HQ. And a major AEW star could be returning by Forbidden Door. It's all in the Cultaholic Wrestling news right now. A concern growing among the roster at AEW is, well, in fact, as Andrew's about to tell you, the roster.
Yes, so this comes from the Wrestling Observer, and they say, on the surface, there are far too many wrestlers on the roster, which leads to a lot of frustration because most don't get the ring time and exposure they want. There are far too many older wrestlers and not enough younger wrestlers. Plus, the young wrestlers are the ones not getting enough ring time to improve and to elevate.
This is something that I must admit I've talked about on and off among other people for a while, and that is the breadth of stars and wrestlers and talent, whatever you want to call them, at AEW. There's a lot, and the inclusion of Ring of Honor having its own show has meant that we're certainly getting less of the belt on AEW TV these days, and there's a home for the other wrestlers, but there still feels like there's a lot of people around the backstage area.
Absolutely, as well, and it always feels, or at least it felt like to me at one point that AEW was definitely, and I'm sure it still is, obviously, as well, it's about developing sort of the younger talent and the future generations of wrestling, and I think when they do that, they do an absolute phenomenal job of it as well. But obviously, you also want to bolster your roster with sort of some of the people that you're kind of familiar with from maybe way back when as well at the same time. So I think it's just perhaps with just the size of everything at this point as well, it's a hard balancing act to pull off, I feel like.
They could have less wrestlers though.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely something that we've spoken about for the longest time, isn't it?
It really has been. It really has been. In WWE, more cuts were carried out on Thursday. No wrestlers were released by the company on this occasion, but a number of WWE employees were at the company's HQ. PW Insider reporting that a few were laid off, including some long-standing staff members. The full extent of the layoffs unknown. The cuts are believed to have affected more than one area in the company. And Fightful Selective reported that one of the names let go was Kristen Prouty, who is the WWE Senior Vice President of Entertainment Relations. Prouty has been in that role for almost 2 decades, having started when WWF, as they were known, were coming out of the Attitude Era in 2000. She was said to have been instrumental in WWE beginning their working relationship with Logan Paul that has seen him establish himself as a top star within the company and the United States champion. Another employee let go was Tavia Hartley, served as a talent operations and appearances manager. She's been there since 2021. Not knowing how closely the cuts were related to the merging of the UFC and the WWE Live Events Group. We talked about that this week as well, as TKO Live Event strategy team were formed with job losses in both of the previous departments. Cuts were hinted at in the announcement of the merger under the euphemism of cost synergies.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, we'll see how this goes, because away from the wrestling sphere right now, even in like the video games industry, and you see groups like Endeavor just buy up all these companies and then they cut loads of people and stuff like that as well. They usually tout it to, oh, it's cost synergies, it'll be helpful for the companies in the long run down the line. But whether that's the case or not, we'll see. I mean, this is WWE and TKO, to be fair, so like I'm sure they will be. But yes, that's usually kind of like the spiel that they put out surrounding stuff like this, at least anyway.
I feel like whether it comes to wrestling or video games or entertainment or broadcast, a lot of cost cutting could be done by paying executives less. I think that's just something that is a recurring theme across a whole pantheon of areas.
Yes, absolutely.
If a lot of industries, maybe pay executive less, maybe you have more money for people who are actually doing the grunt work. There's a wild idea, just a thought. Now let's talk about Julia. It was this week it was revealed that she suffered a wrist injury that consequently will keep her out of the ring as it was when it comes to Marigold. But in terms of her WWE debut, it's not set to make any particular bother. It's not to cause any particular bother. But there is another factor that might play into it.
So yeah, this comes from the Wrestling Observer too. They say those close to her also say she will not be starting that soon. That's in regards to, I believe there was talks about her turning up maybe at NXT Heatwave in July to go up against Roxanne Perez. Observer, they're saying that those close to her also say she'll not be starting that soon, and all the necessary paperwork for her, her mother, and her boyfriend who are moving with her to Florida has to be completed for her to be in NXT full time. However, since the show is in Canada, not the US, the visa restrictions aren't there aren't so sorry. The visa restrictions aren't there. So from a legal standpoint, so she could do the show. Wrestlers, however, are told to lie to almost everyone about their WWE start dates by WWE management, and while not applicable in the past, have even been told that if the date gets out or word gets out, then that they are signed before WWE gives them the okay. Then they could rescind the deal. And Dave goes on to say, I'm not aware this has ever happened, but literally at least a dozen times with people I know when I found out they are going to WWE, almost all still will deny it. When she was asked about that date, she laughed and said it wasn't accurate. Those in WWE at this point, who in theory would know and in theory could, but probably wouldn't know, all only said that they had heard nothing about her start date. So she might be there, she might be not there. So in a roundabout way.
Through the Dave Meltzer writing, which is as jazz happens, as we have discussed over the years here on the news videos. That's Dave Meltzer saying that currently those plans for her to be at Heatwave might not be the case. However, because she's having visa issues, but Canada's a whole different ballgame.
Yes, yeah.
And it might not be an issue there. She might be lying. Well, either way, Julia at some point is coming to NXT.
Yes, yeah.
And will make a huge impact in doing so. Let's talk about TNA Impact, where last night Jordynne Grace faced Marty Bell. And in the process of that match, Jordynne Grace had a chunk of her ear ripped off.
I've seen it. You see it on the fishnets. It's all over the social medias. It's not a nice thing.
It's not a very nice look, is it? Courtesy of Marty Bell and her fishnets. It was quite an unpleasant look where we saw, you can see afterwards, you can see the big hole missing in the ear of Jordynne Grace. And then they do a promo, do Marty Bell and Allysin Kay making her return to Impact, where Allysin Kay is leaning next to the leg of Marty Bell with the stud from Jordynne Grace's ear still lodged in the fishnets.
Oh.
There was a tweet that went out from Jordynne Grace where she talked about auctioning off the bit of ear and the fishnets.
I don't know if is that allowed?
I don't think it's kosher to auction off bits of flesh, unless, maybe Facebook Marketplace will have a different idea.
Maybe.
But it was good to see Allysin Kay popping back up. Sienna, as she was then known back in the day. That was nice to see. I enjoyed that immensely. But we will end on somebody else who might be making a shocking return in the weeks and months to come.
Absolutely.
In AEW.
Yeah, Fightful have shared an update on MJF's AEW status, and they say, we can't speak to a certain date, but discussions have happened regarding MJF making an on-screen return to All Elite Wrestling. How it will look, alterations in presentation and the like have all been broached between MJF and AEW. There are several sources within AEW that believe that he could be coming back sooner than later, with most expecting him back in the fold by Forbidden Door in New York, if not sooner. Now, obviously, we haven't seen MJF since he lost the AEW Championship at World's End after Adam Cole turned his back on him, forming the Undisputed Kingdom. Cole himself, obviously, also on a lengthy absence due to injury, so them two have not been able to get back into it and resolve their issues there. Be lovely to see MJF back, especially sort of in this whole scenario with Team AEW and Team Elite,
which will take centre stage on Sunday at Double or Nothing.
Yeah, do we see him turn up?
You know what? Stranger things have happened. Best place to check that out is with us, live reactions with myself and Ross Tweddle on Sunday to AEW Double or Nothing. The day before, it is Andrew Hodgkinson and Adam Pacitti doing live reactions to King and Queen of the Ring, and Fraser Porter's pulling in a shift tonight as well.
He is, yeah, twitch.tv/Cultaholic at 6 p.m. BST. Fraser will be reacting reacting to SmackDown because it's going up early because they're in Saudi Arabia for it this time, I tell thee.
As they say in Saudi Arabia.
As they say in Saudi
Welcome
Arabia.
to Jeddah. Hey, Bargum. Get Yorkshire tea cake down your favourite.
They'll love it.
Here in Saudi Arabia. And for the latest wrestling news throughout the day, you can check out Cultaholic.com. Keith.
I love you, bye.